What's up, Cowboys Nation? Welcome to another episode of Doc Talk with Dr. Boothby of Orthopedic and Sports Medicine Institute in Fort Worth, Texas. Doc, how you doing?
Hey guys, how are you? Doing well this morning. Eager to talk to you guys as always. Got some injury news on the burner here, so eager to get it going.
Yeah, last time we talked, you gave us a really good update on just a general prognosis of Dak Prescott's injury, and that was about 5 weeks ago. Here we are
Yep.
5 weeks later. I believe it'll be 6 weeks next week, if I'm not mistaken. And he's gripping the ball. He's throwing the ball fine. Last week, he labeled himself as day-to-day. And now after the game last night or on Sunday, depending on when you're listening, he said, hey, I'm ready to go. I'm ready for week 6. Does that timeline, match up to what you believed at the beginning of this thing, which wasn't the 3 to 4 weeks that, Jerry was trying to tell us? It was more so along the lines of 4 to 6, 6 to 8.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And the bony part. There's really two parts that have to get squared away with Dak's hand. And number one is the bony part, right? Like that injury has to unite, and that typically takes, in that 5 6 week time frame. Biology is biology as much as Cowboys Nation and their owner want it to be faster. Biology takes its time, and we have to get that foundation or that skeleton squared away before he's really able to get after it, especially in a sport like football. The other issue that comes along is when you have surgery, when you're healing that fracture. What we don't talk about some is the soft tissue injury around that. That's not where we take an x-ray and look at the bony part, but it's when we look at that soft tissue envelope and what his thumb actually has to do to play the game of football, and specifically, throw as the quarterback. So that once you kind of get the skeleton squared away and it's stable enough to be doing those range of motion exercises, getting some strength back in the hand, really working on that soft tissue envelope. This is just about the right timing when we would say, yeah, he's going to be good to go, and get him some reps, obviously, in practice, and start a timetable towards when he gets back on the field in gameplay.
So one of my concerns, of rushing him back if they happen to do that, which doesn't seem like that's what they're doing right now, Doc, was, that hand getting hit again. It wasn't all about just gripping the ball. That's obviously number one, right? You got to be able to grip the ball to throw it.
Sure.
But
Sure.
I believe he has a screw in there, if I'm not
Yeah.
mistaken.
Yeah. So, I mean, what you're talking about obviously is re-injury. And
Right.
this is why I think it was so valuable for him not to be on the 3 to 4 week timetable, where the risk of re-injury, because of the bones not fully healing back together yet. I'm much happier him on a 5 6 week timetable, because the bone has had a chance to really heal. So, as much as we would love to put a cocoon around him and, a pillow of some sort that nothing bad is obviously ever going to happen to him again. Football is a violent sport. And so there's a risk, obviously, of re injury. But our job, when we put that hand back together, is to make sure that the risk is not higher
Mm.
than if it was on his other uninjured side. So at this point, with bony union, after the surgery and letting that bone heal, statistically speaking, there shouldn't be a higher risk of a helmet injury or something, causing another fracture compared to his other uninjured side. That's kind of all we can do at that point, right? We can't put guarantees out there that nothing bad's ever going to happen to him, because again, it's a violent sport. But I'm much happier with this sort of time frame, because it allows that bony union that we're talking about, and I think really decreases the risk of re-injury.
That sounds like good news to me. All of Cowboys Nation should be excited to get Dak Prescott back here, moving
Sure.
forward, and getting him back healthy. That was always the main thing.
100%. Couldn't agree with that more.
Now, the other guy that we'll talk about here, discuss, is Dalton Schultz. Back in week 2, he had suffered a PCL injury. And for Cowboys Nation, we should be familiar with this. I believe we spoke about the PCL last year with Ezekiel Elliott and the effects
Yep.
that it has on running backs. He missed the
Sure.
game from the PCL, which Zeke didn't, but he missed the game, came back then got injured again. I believe it was in week 5 or 4, week 5 against the Rams, and only played 10 snaps in that game. Then he missed this game again. Can you tell us how tricky these PCL sprains are, and why re-aggravation could be something that doesn't really go away unless they A, get it taken care of, or B, rest?
Sure. Sure. It's a great question. And it is, you hit it right on the head. Tricky is a good word to use here because there just is more variability when it comes to PCL injuries than other ligamentous injuries. And it's because of actually how the PCL is shaped. So I'll jump into that in just a second. But PCL injuries, just so that everybody knows, it's the posterior cruciate ligament. It's one of the four stabilizing ligaments of our knee. So basically, its job is to prevent the tibia or the lower leg bone from going backwards compared to the upper leg bone or the femur. So we want our knee to work like a hinge joint. We don't want it to slide back and forth. And that sliding back and forth motion is controlled by the ACL on one side and the PCL on the other. The reason these injuries are tricky is because the PCL is much broader in its attachment point on the femur. And so instead of being really kind of like a band or a rope that you might take your little finger or your index finger and say, okay, here's my ACL, right? And it looks like a rope, literally keeping the tibia from sliding forward. The PCL shape is much more fan-like. It's broader. It has a broader attachment point. It tends to be strained more regularly and torn a little bit less frequently. So we're able at that point to play through PCL injuries at a higher rate than we're able to play through ACL injuries.
Hmm.
Now, that said, there's more wiggle room, right? So, like some PCL injuries cause instability. The knee feels like it's sliding, it's unstable, you can't plant on it. And those injuries are more serious and sometimes even require surgery to fix. Some PCL injuries are just strained, and within a week or so, people are back. They're able to put pressure on it. They're able to be explosive and athletic off of it, and they get better much quicker. So the issue here is that the spectrum, or the our ability to predict when he's going to be able to be effective, it's much harder, and it's a bigger range because of this anatomical difference. So I think what they're trying to do here is they're trying to see what he can physically do and let his play and what the knee feels like on the field determine whether they push forward here or whether they rest him, or what to
Right.
do next. If he was to fix it surgically at this point, just kind of jump in and say, oh, we're just going to fix it surgically, he's done for the rest of the season. So in trying to avoid that, they're trying to play the cards they're dealt and say, hey, we're going to try and make him as effective as possible and let his play on the field really determine how we have to take care of this.
Without obviously knowing the extent of his PCL injury,
Yep.
and just kind of putting the pieces together, right? Where okay, he strained it or he aggravated it, but apparently not to the point where he needs to get surgery. Would
Sure.
would a 4 game stint on IR? We don't even got to use the term IR if you don't want to, but would something like a month of rest be good for this injury, or is it something where either you need to rest for a long time or you need to get it cleaned up? It really doesn't matter at this point.
Yeah. The way I would look at that, and again, I haven't seen the imaging and
Right.
and and extent of the PCL damage, but the way I look at that is, we typically try in the short term, in the near term, in the first few weeks, to see if it's one of the easy ones, and we can get him back out there. Once it declares itself, there's either a restrain, the patient feels like, the player feels like the knee is giving way, or like they're really kind of gimpy or limpy on
Mhm.
it, and they can't be their normal self. That's when we fall back into kind of phase two, which is okay. Now let's give him a few weeks off. Let's give him a stint off without, going a surgical route to see if we can patch this up enough and it can heal up enough to then give him the stability he needs moving forward, so that hopefully by the end of the season, midway end of the season, he's back and contributing. And then if that didn't work at that point, if he came back and was still ineffective, that then is all the reason to say, hey, all right, man, time to fix this and get on the road to recovery for next year. So it's a staged process. I think they're trying, because of the timing of this happening in the season, during the season. I think they're staging their response, hoping for the best, and really letting what he can do dictate that. So, we might be kind of going to phase 2 here, where he gets a little bit more of an extended break and see what happens before he's back out there. Hard to tell.
Man, good stuff there, Doc. Very good stuff. Listen, if you do have an ACL, PCL, MCL, any of these CLs, any issues with it, where can they find you to come get some advice or some help, man?
Sure. Well, come find us at the Orthopedic and Sports Medicine Institute. It's 817-529-1900, or online at www.osmifw.com. We've got 3 locations here in Fort Worth and in Mansfield, as well as in Decatur, so you can find us all over. And I'd love to help you out if you guys need anything.
Hey, thank you, Dr. Boothby, for your time as always. I look forward to talking to you again. Hopefully, it's more about positive updates as opposed to something crazy that happens all the time in Dallas, man.
We'll take one, man. We'll take some of that positive. Let's hope for it.
Indeed, man. That will be Doc Talk for this week. Join us again next month, Cowboys Nation. Appreciate you.